Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. Joining me in the studio is Robbie Rip Rains. Doc will not be here tonight. He's processing orders, trying to get as many out as he can before Christmas. And unfortunately, Steve has to work tonight. So you just have to put up with the two of us yahoos tonight. We will try to keep things interesting and moving along. Robbie, how the heck are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Or
how's your week been?
How's what?
How's your week been?
Not too bad. I was off Monday and Tuesday, so went back today and work tomorrow, and then I'll have the weekend off, and then go work Christmas Day.
Yeah, I don't miss that.
And the day after, and New Year's.
The joys of civil service.
Yep.
I worked so many holidays when the kids were growing up. I think they thought I was only that just glimpse they got of somebody going to bed then leaving for work again later.
Yeah. Who's that guy?
Yeah. Does he live here? I saw it was Taylor's birthday the other day.
Yep.
Tell her I said happy birthday.
I will. My baby is now 20.
My youngest is 24, so I feel your pain. Ruined every one of these gray hairs. Not that I have any up here, but hey.
Well, same here. They ain't up here, they're down here.
Got some good news from my my cardiac doctor today. Went and saw her.
Good.
So I think my vitals look good. Haven't had any more issues where I'm out of breath. No swelling in my joints or anything like that. Heart's sounding better, but there's still some concern. They got a few other tests they're going to run. I go back to see her in March, but they changed my medicines up today and said if I feel weird at all, to give her a call immediately. She said don't wait, but they think we're on the right track and things are looking up. So
you did good about that. You did good the other weekend when I was up there. I don't know if it was. I thought it was secretly, but you probably noticed that I was watching you pretty hawkishly.
You and Noah both.
Yeah, but you did good.
Haven't got a chance to get back down there. I want to get down there and see if I can find those canine tracks that we saw in the video. But haven't had a chance to get back down there. It's the week of Christmas, and we've been running around like crazy this week. But I want to get back down there.
And I forgot to tell you when we got off the air, so I'll just go ahead and share with you what Johnny shared with me about how we could have cast that. Like we said, we didn't have what we would have needed to do it anyway. But he said get some of those, not the little small ones, but some of those thick paint stir sticks like you get from Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Carry some super glue. If you can get some activator, that's even better. And measure, go ahead and cut the tails off of them so they're just flat pieces of wood without that little dip in them for the handle part. He said then you measure out the box of how big the track is around it. Then you super glue that thing together, put that around the track, and then you pour. Then it still will go down into the track, but you get that box that's built around it that will give you that form. I'm like, I pour epoxy resin, and I didn't think of something like that. I felt stupid when he told me. I'm like, duh. But
I thought of something similar. I thought about just like I've got a couple of busted leather belts. I thought about just taking a leather belt and putting it in my kit. And anytime we find something like that, just take the leather belt and form a complete circle as close to the edge of the track as we can, and like clip it together so the leather belt holds up. Then pour our cement in there.
Yeah, that probably would work too. I'm sitting here thinking back about it. Of course, we all know hindsight's 20/20, and we couldn't think of anything right there. But I'm sure if we really thought about it, we probably could have come up with something.
Yeah, we even could have like made a dam around it with dirt. We could have just piled up dirt. We should have tried to cast it, but at the time nothing popped into mind, and what they say, out of sight, out of mind.
It is what it is, and it's not the first time that we found tracks. I mean, and I'm sure it ain't gonna be the last.
Yeah, I want to go back down to Blunk Road. Hopefully there'll be nothing else down there, and we can walk the edge of the river, because there's a lot less gravel along the James River than there is down there along the shore of Table Rock, because Table Rock's really rocky.
Well, I know one thing: we ain't getting Dark Waters to go with us.
He ain't going. He was out the minute he saw the deer head.
Old DW said, "Nope. I've seen too many horror movies. I know what happens."
Well, speaking of horror movies, tonight we're going to be talking about some pretty horrendous stuff. When I started digging into this, really only one story made me dig into this subject, but the more I dug, the crazier stuff I found. And it's just really bizarre how many hauntings there are related to railroads, but to trains and railroad wrecks. Not all of them involving train wrecks.
Well, I mean,
And
the
there's even a
main one
couple
that I always
involving
think about
cryptids.
is Werewolf Springs. I mean, that's started out with a train. I mean,
Supposedly a train wreck, and circus animals escaped. I don't know how many times I've read that story. People claim that's what happened, but and the wild man of Borneo escaped, and that's why there's Bigfoot legends. I've heard that in association with like 20 other stories, and I'm like, God dang, how many of these circus trains derailed and lost the wild man of Borneo back then?
yeah, I thought that
Because
before too.
apparently it's a lot.
Seemed like every other train wreck, the wild man of Borneo escaped from them.
And we now haunted the local woods.
Yeah, they got everything back except the wild man of Borneo. So apparently there was a lot of them jokers running around out there in the woods, which is probably why we got such a big, pardon the pun, big Bigfoot population.
And Northwood says, I was financially haunted by the train wreck with my ex for a few years. Not that kind of haunting, man. Not that kind of haunting. Ba-doom-doom. Oh, wait a minute. I can do that. I can do the reaction. Here we go. I forgot that we've got sound effects now.
Oh Lord. I'm used to that one.
Yeah, me too. Josh Dalton says lots of train wreck songs. There are. One of my favorite was a song called "The Wreck of Old 97." I don't know if that's a true story or not, but the song's really cool. But what got me to digging into this was a story I heard from my grandmother years and years ago. That supposedly, when she was a young woman, she was in Pennsylvania, and late one night they saw the ghost train pass that was supposedly carrying Lincoln's body. They're saying on one night a year, the year that was passing, because right after Lincoln was assassinated, his body was moved from Washington D.C. back to Illinois for burial. And there are places along that route where people will say, even if they didn't see it, they hear the sound of an old steam locomotive and feel it go by. And the people that have seen it have described it as being, having yellow lanterns and decked out with black drapery. It's a funeral procession on rails, and to this day, people still report seeing it in especially rural parts of Pennsylvania. But somewhere all along the oh, Josh Dalton says, yeah, that originally happened outside of Danville, Virginia. That's cool. Great song though.
I wonder if that's got that song, that country song, "The Long Black Train." I wonder if that's got anything to do with that.
That might be the song about Lincoln's death train.
It's talking about the devil riding the long black train.
Josh Dalton said that happened outside of Danville, Virginia. Yeah, I remember I heard that song as a kid, and my mom had a massive record collection when I was little, and of course that was back in the days when 8-tracks were king. So I would play these records to death. I would sit with headphones or even sometimes without it and just play these old records, and grew up listening to songs like that. And the Wreck of Old 97 is something that I really enjoyed. I didn't know it was based on a real event, but it makes sense. 443 Big Vic says, DA, the interesting fact. Let me put it up. Interesting fact: the Texas Railroad Commission plays a major role to determine the price of gas. Meanwhile, it's a rarity to see a running train or properly maintained tracks. Doesn't surprise me. But the Lincoln death car, people, the death train, people who report seeing it report hearing that lonesome whistle, and that's mentioned in a lot of country songs. That mournful cry of the old
Mm-hmm.
train, but having worked down at Silver Dollar City, they have one of those steam locomotives down there, and I could hear that in the distance, off the other side of the park, and it is kind of haunting because it does echo through those hollers. So it's a pretty neat sound, but I can definitely see how that would be something haunting because modern trains just don't sound anything like that.
No, modern trains are aggravating, especially when they run over or run into a mobile home that is stopped on the tracks.
Yeah.
It cause you to stand outside in direct traffic for 7.5 hours in the hot summer sun. I'm sorry, I was trailing off to days of yesteryear.
Well, it
Actually,
happened.
2 years ago.
Um, I was going to say something about the Lincoln. Oh, here's another weird fact about the Lincoln train. People, it probably doesn't happen so much to the day of cell phones, but people who have witnessed the train, their watches quit.
Hmm.
Isn't that weird?
That is
Whenever the
weird.
train passes by, their watches quit.
They start back up after the train goes by, or they quit and have to be.
Doesn't say. It says Abraham Lincoln's ghost train. One of the most popular stories is the Abraham Lincoln ghost train. Rumor has it that the ghost train still travels through the countryside the same time each year with the president's casket aboard. It has been rumored that clocks and watches stop running whenever the train passes by.
Hmm.
That's wild.
Robbie Dog.
Well, there's so much mystery around the Lincoln assassination. Anyway, I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody's seen those parallels between the Lincoln assassination and the Kennedy assassination. I don't know how much of that is
Yes.
true. I don't know, but if any of it's true, it's really really
Well,
bizarre that there's so many coincidences.
even if some of them aren't true, there's enough of them that are true that you can just
Yeah.
they're just known facts that are true that make you go,
Right. Yeah, wasn't both their vice presidents named Johnson?
"Yep." Oh, there's somebody put a video out on TikTok about it, and I'm sitting there watching it going, "Oh my god, I never realized that." I mean,
Yeah,
it literally it's like 13 or 14 things that are just like right off the top of your you don't have to say, well, they're actually just like uh three name the supposed killer had three names.
Mhm.
Uh, Johnson being the vice president. I think there's something to do with the name of the
One of their
place.
secretaries.
Yeah, with the secretaries, there was something to do with the name of the place where they were killed at. Has got something in common. Uh, it just it was just like whoa.
Yeah, Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theater, and Kennedy was riding in a vehicle made by Ford.
Yeah,
Ford owned Lincoln Continental back then. I think they still do, but it's a separate brand now. But it was the Ford Motor Company built the Lincolns. Edson Kidwell says there's a history show that covers all the oddities. Maybe we ought to do a show on that sometime. Just on the weird not conspiracies, the weird inconsistencies and coincidence between
correlations.
the correlations between Kennedy and Lincoln. I think that's a good idea. We'll have to do that.
I agree.
But that whole thing, when you start talking about haunted railways, I mean, I don't think there's anybody in America that hasn't grown up near a rail yard and or a railroad, and heard those trains in the night. Hell, there's a train track less than a mile from my house now, and at night we can hear the trains passing through. But there's just something odd about,
Uh,
especially late at night, to hear that train whistle in the distance. It's
the
kind of a
first
haunting sound.
first major thing I ever worked as a police officer. Uh, Trains go through Liberty all the time. First major thing I ever worked was one of our town drunks that got hit by a train. That was one of my first big things that I ever did as a police officer. He got drunk and staggered out on the track right in front of a.
When I was
Looked
a kid
good.
in New Mexico, there was a drunk hobo that got his legs cut off. He lived. He got drunk, passed out on the tracks with his legs across the tracks, and coal train comes shooting out of Colorado, And those coal trains that have 100, 120 cars on it, they were steaming. They didn't stop for nothing, and it took that dude's legs clean off.
Oh, this took more than his legs off.
Pretty much did him in.
Yeah. He was the graffiti down the first 20 cars.
Yeah. Chumming for land sharks.
Land sharks, yeah.
Casey Calloway says, Robbie, a friend of mine did that and lost his legs.
Like I said, this guy lost. I'm trying not to be real graphic, but it was really graphic.
Yeah. But the Lincoln one though, it's so funny. Because there's some strange things about it. Like, for one, his wife didn't leave Washington. She stayed there, even though she was no longer the first lady. She stayed in Washington while his body was taken back to Illinois, which is odd. If something were to happen to one of us, people that are our family would go with the body. No, she didn't travel with it. There was the rumor that he wasn't even buried there, that he was buried in Washington, D.C. under secret. And there was a big to do on where his body actually was. I believe it's in Illinois, but there's just so much mystery surrounding that, especially the way he was killed and everything. The whole right there at the end of the Civil War, there was so much weird things going on in the U.S. and it ended up giving us a lot of really great ghost stories.
Well, then, if you take those two assassinations, there are more conspiracy theories attached to those two assassinations than probably any other big time assassination or assassination attempt, I'd probably say, in the world. The Kennedy assassination by itself, how many shows have they made on the different, conspiracy theories and things like that, just for the Kennedy assassination? It's unreal how much is attached to that. So
right. Yeah. Kevin Bode said he heard it was Lincoln's double that was killed. You'd think that would be something they would admit. Hey, the president's not dead. Yeah. Steve Payton says, I worked in 2020. I worked a train derailment. I bet that was brilliant. I bet that was something. Don Donaldson says it's in Springfield, Illinois, and somebody tried to dig up and steal his body. Why would you steal a body? Especially when it's been dead that long.
Well, there ain't much left.
Yeah, sure, you can get a DNA sample out of it, but what are you going to do with a desiccated corpse? Yeah, if it was, I'm going to have to look into that, because I haven't heard the theory that it was Lincoln's double that was killed. I'm going to look into that.
I think that's the first time I ever heard that one too.
Casey Calloway says Kennedy said 7 days before he died that he was going to dismantle the CIA. Does not surprise me. I've also heard the phrase, the CIA supports the president that supports the CIA. Glenn Dennison says for ransom. Well, I think that would be something that would get the entire weight of the U.S. government down on you. You probably wouldn't get much of a ransom out of a corpse.
But
I don't think there'd be anywhere you could run. They would keep looking for you forever.
Right. But if it was his double, that would explain why what you were just talking about his wife not going with the body.
It would explain why she didn't. But the weird thing is why they would never go public with it. Why wouldn't they say, president's alive and well, he didn't kill Lincoln?
Maybe it was one of those things where they were thinking, okay, he's just too much of a target, or
maybe Lincoln said, let him believe I'm dead.
Yeah.
Because, he's probably not going to be the only one to try. The country was still brutally split at the end of the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
And there were a lot of people that wanted to take him out. Casey Calloway said essentially what we just said. Maybe Lincoln was tired of it all.
Yeah.
Glenn Dennison says criminals aren't exactly geniuses. You have a good point.
It wouldn't be the first time that something like that had been we don't know for sure if it's been attempted. We kind of speculated on other levels like Hitler and things like that. I mean, it would make sense, especially when you start throwing in those glaring oddities like his wife didn't go back with the body. That would, I mean, that would
That's
explain
something
that.
that's really stuck out to me. I mean, why wouldn't she go back for the funeral?
Yeah. I mean, even if it was that, you would think that they would, okay, you've got to go to this funeral to keep these, keep the charade up. But I don't know. Maybe they didn't think like that back then. Who knows?
It's an interesting point. Medit says, honey, it was still split in the 60s in some areas of the South. Hell, there are places where it's still split today. Yeah, I know people that were not even alive when that war happened, and it won't be over for them, which is nuts, but it's the world we live in, folks. KC Calloway says, on Men in Black, they said Elvis was still alive. He just went home. Yeah, I remember that.
No, sir. Elvis is not dead. He just went home.
Thad Brown says, I think Hitler survived up to the early 70s in South America. There's evidence. I agree with you. In fact, we did a show about that a couple of years ago. We might have to revisit that. That's actually what gave me the inspiration for my book, codename Wild Hunt Operation Blood Eagle, was that Hitler survived for a long time in Argentina.
Yep, there's a nice painting up at Steve's Pub and Grub.
Well, it's a decent painting.
And
a nice piano. A very expensive piano. Let's see. What are some of the other ones? I know you looked up some, but let's see. There's the Lincoln one. There was one happened in 1910 in Wellington, Washington. That was the single greatest loss of life in America at that point in any train wreck, and I think it may still be, at least in the United States. Apparently, back in the late 18, it was 1910. The railroad started going through that pass in the 1890s. But in 1910, this train carrying a bunch of families and some prospectors, like 105 people, something like that, were going through this pass in the Cascade Mountain Range, and it was snowing so hard they said it was dropping more than a foot an hour. Well, the train eventually made it. It's the deadliest avalanche in the U.S. history. It wasn't the deadliest train wreck. It was the Great Northern Railway out of King County, Washington. It was dropping almost a foot of snow an hour. And when they reached a certain point in the pass, in Wellington Pass, the train could not push any more snow out of the way. The snow on the track ahead of them was so heavy, the train just couldn't go any further. Of course, it had been falling behind them, so there's no way they could just back up over it. So they got basically snowed in, and I believe they were in there for, I want to say 9 days. But anyway, at one point, the snow reached 11 feet deep, and they were basically stuck there. The conductor and several other people got out and walked to the next town to say, "Hey, we're trapped. We need to get people down there." They're running out of food. They ran out of fuel to keep the train cars warm. So these people were freezing to death in these train cars. But before that happened, they don't know exactly what caused it, but an avalanche kicked loose, and it took out that entire train, pushed it off a cliff, killed. The official story is killed 93 people, I believe it was. I mean, look. Trying to find the exact total. I believe it was 93 people, but they believe that the total was actually quite a bit higher because the train had a bunch of railroad workers on it that were quote unquote not accounted for, and the railroad shut that up. It took them 6 months to get all the bodies out of the bottom of that cliff. And apparently, with that spot where that train got pushed over by the railroad, people even to this day are hearing disembodied voices. They hear a woman singing. The conductor who walked out to safety raised the alarm to get people to come rescue the people on the train, and then he went back and he ended up getting and dying on the train as well. So it was really bizarre circumstances, but this avalanche took out that train, and the estimates may be as high as 130, 140 people, but the official death toll is like 93, and it was the single largest loss of life from an avalanche in the U.S. And it's supposedly a very haunted place even to this day.
Hey, that's
Uh, Yeah, that one to me, that one is really tragic because it was one of those where, if they'd had better technology, that might have been avoided. I mean, look at some of those trains that go through Alaska just blasting snow off the tracks, but those old
yeah.
steam locomotives just didn't have the power.
Yep.
Just an old part says, "Isn't Operation Blood Eagle the next one Cam is going to narrate?" Yes, sir. He's working on it now. Hopefully, it'll be done soon. I need to get a hold of him and see how he's doing. Need to call him, wish him a Merry Christmas anyway.
Yep.
Do you want to tell him about the one in North Carolina, the Mako light, or do you want me to tell him?
Yeah, I can do it. I just had to pull it back up because I was
All right.
looking at some other ones, but I can pull it right back up.
This one's not far from Robbie.
What was it? MACO. What was the catch, or how did we look that up again?
Trying to remember what you look at.
Was it the Mako Light?
The Mako light.
Light. Okay.
MACO. If you can't find it, I can do it.
I got it. I couldn't remember how we looked it up.
Okay.
All right. Oop, let me. I lost my glasses. Oh well. Bear with me. I'm gonna have to move my focus rod back and forth. The Mako Light, also called Ghost at Mako Station, is one of North Carolina's most well-known and enduring supernatural phenomenon. It dates to a fatal train wreck in 1867 at a small rural station then called Farmer's Turnout. It's 14 miles west of Wilmington on the line serving Wilmington, Florence, South Carolina, and Augusta, Georgia. Conductor Joe Baldwin, riding in the last car of the wood-burning train, discovered that his car had come uncoupled. He died waving a lantern from the rear of the car in a failed attempt to signal to stop to the second train coming up from behind. One witness said Baldwin's lantern fly clear of the train and land right itself adjacent to the swamp and burn on. So apparently he was waving it, and the train hit, and it knocked it out of his hand, and landed kind of like that. We call it a flip bottle thing. Landed straight up and kept on burning. Shortly afterward, and for over a century since, a flickering light has appeared regularly along the railroad tracks in the vicinity of the 1867 collision. Legend attributes this light to the ghost of Joe Baldwin, who was decapitated in the wreck. The ghost is said to be looking for its head. Okay. From 1873 until after 1886, an 1886 earthquake, railroad workers reported a pair of Mako lights that would appear together. Over the years, the Mako light has been bright enough to fool many railroad workers into stopping their trains to remedy the ghost schedule, thwarting attempts. Signalman, I guess those are the guys that actually.
Yeah.
At Mako used two lights, one red and one green, while President Grover Cleveland's train Sorry, this is just not written clearly. While President Grover Cleveland's train was wooding and watering up the Mako in 1889, the president saw the two signal lights, asked about them, and got the full story of old Joe Baldwin. That's pretty cool. President Grover Cleveland actually saw the lights. Now, I don't know if that means he saw actual lights or if he saw the ghost lights. It doesn't really say. It just says he saw the lights.
That's
That would be
pretty freaking wild.
That would be pretty cool if you actually saw the ghost lights.
You know, this kind of thing doesn't just happen here in the States. There's one in Russia called the Ufa train disaster. Back in 1989, two passenger trains were passing each other between the towns of Ufa and Asha in the Ural Mountains. In total, there were over 1,300 passengers riding in nearly 40 cars attached to two train engines. The trains were carrying hundreds of children, both on their way to and from vacation camps on the Black Sea. Hundreds of meters away, a gas pipeline was leaking liquid gas into the gully where the trains were passing each other. The liquid gas formed a dense vapor in the valley, creating a tinderbox that was waiting for ignition. As the trains passed each other, one of the train's wheels sparked and ignited the air. The resulting explosion is estimated to have been the equivalent of 10,000 tons of TNT and was visible from 95 miles away. According to the official records, 575 people were killed, including 181 children. There are multiple reports that list even higher death tolls. Unofficial sources believe there were closer to 780 deaths that tragic night. Over 100 ambulances carried the injured to local hospitals. Over 800 people in the official reports. One of the doctors on the scene, Mikhail Kalinin, had this to say about the incident. I came to work that day, fair-haired, and returned gray-haired. After the tragedy, we could not speak about it. Heaven forbid that you see such human tragedy. And they say in that section of the rural mountains that you can still hear the explosions on certain nights, and you will hear screaming children along that train track.
That's a freaking weird area anyway.
The Urals are creepy. Granted, that's a place I've never been, but to me, the stories that come out of the Ural Mountains, man, that's an area that would be. You could do a whole series there.
Isn't the Headless Pass somewhere close to that?
Yeah, I believe it's in the Urals.
Yeah. Well, here's one. Is not an actual on the tracks story, but I just thought this one was pretty cool. The title is "The Dangers of Working Overtime at a Railroad Museum."
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, the staff and volunteers at the Railroaders Memorial Museum in Altoona, Pennsylvania, are a lot like the people who the facility memorializes. The hardworking, loyal people who helped turn the small city of Altoona into a world-famous railroad hub, and one hardworking railroad hub, and one of the hardworking finance directors at the museum found out just how loyal railroad spirits can be. I mean, they just don't want to leave, according to the now legendary Altoona ghost story told by multiple sources. The director walked from his office to the building's elevator after a long, hard day at work. The director, who said he was usually the last one in the office, waited until the elevator door eventually swung open, and he walked in. But shockingly, the director found that he wasn't alone on the elevator. A man stood on either side of the elevator with his back to him. The unexpected guest casually looked over his shoulder at the dismayed finance director. Then the man's body started to, I think it's supposed to say shimmer, but it says shimmy electrically. And eventually,
somebody tased him. Don't tase me, bro.
And eventually completely disappeared. Later, the director noticed a railroad worker in a picture on a display in the museum who looked similar to one might say hauntingly similar to the man who had shared the elevator with him in the haunted railroad wilderness. He assumed this was the ghost of the man that he had bumped into on his elevator ride in the spooky railroad history.
That's freaking weird.
Yeah, that would make me not want to ride an elevator again. I'll go out in the woods and I'll chase Bigfoot and I'll chase Dogman, but I don't want nothing to do with ghosts.
I'm right there with you. If I can't shoot it, I don't want to tackle it. I
Hey,
have my
see
own
what Greg
weird
said?
little train-related ghost story.
Did you see what Greg said
This
in the chat?
no, what'd he say?
He said he was able to stand up today, better than being in a wheelchair.
Heck
Good
yeah,
job,
man.
Greg.
That's awesome, dude. Omen Deet says we have loggers that get the holy crap scared out of them, and they just have to be silent. We have lots of issues up here in the UP. Well, here is my own personal little ghost story that involves the railroad. Uh, the little town I used to work out at as an officer is called Walnut Grove. Walnut Grove used to be a railway hub. The railway hub during the cholera outbreaks here in Missouri would get bodies both from Kansas City and St. Louis, uh, and they would bring them there and bury them in mass graves. I could take you right to the mass graves. Well, when I first started there, I was working with the chief for a while, Joe Mahan. And Joe would took me around the first few shifts and introduced me to people around town because it's not a very big town. And he wanted me to get to know, the people that I'd be working with and everything. And, so people would get to know me. And so we went into this right there in the middle of town is a little flea market. And I went in to this flea market with Joe and he introduced me. And she was a super nice lady. And I was looking around at some of the old antiques in this flea market and stuff. And in the case, I saw a gold pocket watch. And it was a pretty watch, and on the back of it is the inscription. Well, I'll just show you. It's an old steam powered train on the back of it. Now this company isn't in business anymore, so I've tried to date this watch as much as I can, but it's somewhere pre 1950s. That's all really I can tell. They made watches up until like 1954 or something like that. The company is West Clocks, and apparently they've been out of business for quite a while. But I like old pocket watches. I think they're neat. So I asked this lady. I said, "Ma'am, can you tell me about this pocket watch here in the cabinet?" And she says, "Whoa, that thing?" She said, "I've had that thing for probably 10 years. It doesn't work. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I've wound it a billion times and it has never worked." And I said, "Well, how much do you want for it?" She says, "Son, if you want that pocket watch, I'll sell it to you for $10, but you're going to have to get it fixed." So I bought it, took it out, was looking at it, and I wound it, and it started ticking. And it's worked perfectly ever since. Lady could not get this watch to work for 10 years. And I pick it up and wind it, and it starts working. That is weird. She was like, she was absolutely astounded when it started working. She's like, "Oh my God, I can't tell you how many times I wound that thing and it would never do anything."
I remember you telling me that story the first time, and I was like, "What?
Yeah.
That's weird."
I can't explain it, but it's a gold watch on a gold chain. And I don't think it's a particularly expensive watch. I'm not thinking it's worth a lot of money. It's not probably worth a whole lot of anything to anybody but me. But it's just so weird. I mean, it's ticking right now. I'd take my headphone out to make sure, but yeah, I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone, but it's just ticking away. And I forgot to wind it the other day. In fact, I hadn't wound it in like a week because I seldom carry this unless I'm wearing my vest, and it started ticking out of the blue with it. I hadn't wound it in days, and it started ticking out of the blue and reminded me, "Hey, you're supposed to be winding this thing." So I set it and wound it, and now I keep it right out where I can see it. But just one of those weird things. I mean, very bizarre. Glenn Dennison said the sword and the stone. Little Patty says, "Watch wanted to belong to somebody." Well, I'm proud to have it. I mean, to me, it's one of my more valued possessions. And again, like I said, it's probably not worth much. I mean, it's just an old pocket watch. It doesn't even have like the flip front face on it. It's just an open face pocket watch, and it's probably just gold plated. I doubt it's even real gold, but it's old. It is definitely, 70, 80 years old, and really cool thing to have, kind of an artifact for me, I guess. I don't know if any of my boys will want it when something happens to me, or if they'll put it in my vest pocket. But it's kind of like like Gollum said, "My precious."
Yep. North was brought up. I was thinking about that show just as we were sitting there talking about that. You remember that old show, Amazing Stories?
Mhm.
Stephen Phil-
I remember that. My wife and I were just talking about that the other day.
One
That
of my
train comes shooting through the house.
Yep. But one of my favorite ones of that was I think it was the World War One, where
The bomber pilot.
where he drew the landing gear was messed up, and the kid drew the landing gear, and he just sat there and concentrated on it so hard that the cartoon landing gear came out, and they couldn't.
And they cut him. They cut him out, and
Yeah, and they finally
and
get him out and snap him out of it.
And it boom collapsed into the. Yeah, that was pretty freaking wild. I remember that.
Although I also wanted to get my hands on some of that formula that they were poured on them pictures. You remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah, that one was pretty good. Thank you, Randy. He says, cool looking watch. It is a neat looking old watch. And it's got, what I did find about this edition of the watch is they were made exclusively for the railroad. So this was probably a conductor's watch, and it's got an old steam locomotive on it. And the detail's really good. And it's got some pretty fine detail on it. And you can see the smoke coming out of the engine. So, it could be older than because Westclock went out of business in like 54, 56, something like that. It's not West Clock, it's West Clocks with an X. But it just a really cool old artifact. And, I thought it was really bizarre that it had sat in her display case for a decade. Nobody was ever interested in it. And she could never get the thing to work. And I wind it and it works fine. Judy Smith says it belonged to you before. It's funny you should mention that. I've always felt like that I did, that I have been here before. And I know it may not make any sense. A lot of people don't believe in reincarnation, but I've often remembered things that never happened to me, if that makes sense.
I've heard plenty of people talk about. I personally don't believe in it, but that doesn't mean that it because my goofy butt don't believe in it doesn't mean anything. That just means I don't believe in it.
George Patton was a huge believer in reincarnation.
Yeah, a lot of people.
He wrote a poem called "Through a Glass Darkly." That is an intense poem.
Mm-hmm. Well, everything.
He believed he had lived many times before.
Patton didn't do anything unless it was intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was an interesting fellow. There might be a show there because I believe he was murdered. I don't think Patton died in an accident. I think he was killed.
Well, let me since we said that, my grandfather was a medic in the Army during World War II. Him and my grandfather and his partner were on duty the night Patton was hit, run over, whatever, quote unquote, was done. So my grandfather and his partner load up in their Jeep and start to take off because it was their call. They were going to pick him up. They got stopped by, I think my mom said it was a captain or maybe higher than that. Said, "Don't worry, boys, we got this. Y'all go back to the wherever they were stationed at the MASH. I don't know if it was a MASH hospital, wherever they were at and whatever they're doing. They said go back." So my grandfather was actually sent to go pick Patton up and was stopped and turned around.
I know this is tinfoil hat therapy time where I should probably line my hat with tinfoil, but Josh Dalton says you don't say KGB assassination. I don't think it was the KGB. I think Eisenhower had him killed
because he probably would.
Patton had said when he got back to the States he was going to retire and go into politics, and that was what was Eisenhower's plan. And there ain't no way in hell Eisenhower would have beat Patton. He was extremely popular in America at that time. He's still considered one of our greatest generals. So Eisenhower knew his chances of the presidency were going out the window if Patton went through his hat in the ring. I think Eisenhower had him killed. Now I could be 100% wrong about that.
That's the fun thing about theories like this. You could be 100% wrong or 100% right. Who knows?
Yeah, it's just one crazy guy's theory. Greg Ogle says Eisenhower was an evil man. I agree, and I think that's why Eisenhower had him killed. I think Eisenhower knew that there was not a chance in hell he was getting the presidency if Patton threw his hat in the ring. But that's something I'm going to have to research a little bit more before before I we do an actual show on that. Omadit says, "Oh, and he was vindictive. My grandfather was in politics." Doesn't surprise me. I mean, people that were close to Eisenhower really don't have a lot of good things to say about the guy. Yeah, if I get a knock at my door, you'll know. Well, I think it's a little
President
late for the
Patton, what a
government to give
wild-
two craps. Do what?
Glenn Dennison said, President Patton, what a wild ride that would be.
Yeah. Well, at the end of World War II, when we first started having issues out of the Russians, Patton told Eisenhower, "You give me 100,000 gallons. No, was it 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel in 2 weeks, and I'll have us at war with Russia, and it'll look like their fault."
And he's probably right.
He'd have pulled it off, guaranteed. Yeah, Wild Bill Donovan. I read a book about Wild Bill Donovan, and he was quoted as saying that during the height of the French resistance, and I know we are way off topic here, but Wild Bill
Went
Donovan,
off the rails.
yeah, we went off the rails on the railroad show. But Wild Bill Donovan said that during the height of the French French resistance in World War II, and I mean the height, when they had their most support from the French, they had 1,500 members.
But you think about it. Going back to Kennedy. There's a lot of people who think Johnson had something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't surprise me. Johnson was kind of a scumbag too.
Yeah, he was, and he probably wouldn't have won if he'd ran. That's the. I mean, I just when people think that conspiracy theories like that are just so far fetched, I don't get it when they say stuff like that, because most of the time there's a lot of credence to these things. If you just sit back and look at them, you really start connecting dots, especially on Kennedy's. I mean, obviously that's one of the most popular ones in history, but still, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that makes sense when you start peeling the layers back on these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of really sketchy stuff when you really dig into some of the historical events. I mean, some of the events that were spoon-fed, how this is how you're supposed to remember it, didn't actually go down that way at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not for nothing, the fact that there's no, I mean, how many gun gurus have poured over all this where it said it's almost physically impossible to make that shot with one shot, to make that shot the way the bullet entered his body and exited his body. That is a 1 in a billion shot.
Yeah. For a guy he wasn't a sniper, he was just a Marine.
No, he was just a average everyday rifleman in the Marine Corps.
With a rifle that they have yet to be able to duplicate the shot with.
Was it a Mosin Nagant?
No, it was an Italian bolt action.
What am I thinking? It was. Oh, I know.
Italian.
What's his name? Brandon Herrera. I think when he was doing it, he was using a Nagant instead of what?
Well, Nagant's a similar weapon, but
yeah,
and I think it's the same caliber, similar caliber.
He didn't have that one, so that's why most of the Nagant stuck in my head though. I couldn't.
Yeah, it was an Italian. I think it was an Italian knockoff of the Mauser. Camo Dad says it's a Carcano.
Yep,
that's
Carcano.
right. It was a Carcano, Italian bolt action. Well, I'm trying to shove us back onto the rails of the train stories.
Good luck.
Here's a creepy one. Yeah, good luck. I know. Here's a really creepy one. It's out of Stockholm, Sweden. There's a train there they call the Silver Arrow. And the legend has it that there's like one night a year that the Silver Arrow drives through town. And if you get on that train, you're never seen again. The train just disappears. It's only seen after midnight and stops once every year. If you could see people that have seen it claim that the passengers on board look like zombies, like the living dead. Just expressionless, vacant looks, just standing on the train. And people that have boarded the train have never been seen again.
Imagine that ain't too good for the business.
No, I would not be boarding any train in Stockholm, Sweden after midnight, let alone a silver one. like, would you look at? I think I'm going to walk. What a lovely night for a walk.
I just remembered I got something else to do over here. Oh, what? Like stay alive?
Yeah, anything but ride that damn train. That one, that one would really, because there's lots of ghost train stories, but that one creeps me out because this one's still getting people apparently.
And it's not really a ghost train; it's a zombie train,
Yeah, it's a zombie
which is
train, undead
way
train.
worse than a ghost train.
Yeah, that guy, since it's appearing and disappearing one night a year, I think that's worse than Train to Busan, which was a pretty good movie.
I'll roll past that on Netflix earlier today. Matter of fact,
Mark Napier says the Flying Dutch train. Trying to see, checking. I'm sorry, I was checking for questions. I know I had. Oh, here's one that's train related, but it's not a ghost. The Popelick monster is supposedly lives under a train track in was it Fisherville? No, outside of Louisville, Kentucky. The Popelick monster supposedly, and it's supposedly gotten people. People have gone out there and disappeared, and it's described as being like a goat man, like
well,
sheep squatch, that kind of thing.
yeah, yes, sheep squatch. But how many times have we talked about this and talked about the trolls and things like that live under bridges where we thought that
Mhm.
maybe that's just what over there, that's what they call a Bigfoot type creature.
Well, this is true. We talked about in Norse mythology how trolls could have been what we would now call Bigfoot. Also, Beowulf. When you the description of
Grendel.
Grendel sounds very much like how people describe Bigfoot today.
Yep.
Edie Testament says near Reed Springs has a tunnel that has stories about men killed while building it. Just outside of Lebanon, there's another one too that supposedly somebody committed suicide right there at that little tunnel. It's just outside of Lebanon. Next time I'm up there, I'll go out there and film. But it's mostly just covered with graffiti. It's this old rail tunnel, and it's not even very long. It's just not much longer than a car. It just goes under the tracks. But the tracks are above it. It's not like you go down and then come back up like in a lot of like underpassages. They just built like a bridge over the road, and you go drive through this little tunnel. And it's only wide enough for one car. You can't pass another car in it. But supposedly that place, if you go out there at night, that you can hear a ghostly train sound and the sound of somebody following you, because supposedly more than one death is involved with that bridge tunnel. But the one I primarily heard about as a kid was the suicide on the bridge by somebody jumping right in front of the train right there. And it's a creepy place. I've walked through it at night when I was young and idiotic. Me and some of my buddies would go out there and park and have a few beers that we weren't supposed to be having because we were too young. But many a night I've been out there by that tracks and never seen anything. But it was always a creepy place. It's right next to a rock quarry, so you didn't go wandering too far in the darkness, though. Born Not to Run says Boonville, Ohio has a story of seeing a ghost carrying a lamp on train tracks near the tunnel. There are a lot of places that have ghost lights along train tracks, which are usually conductors or someone that was killed either during a train crash or killed trying to prevent a train wreck. Thad Brown says, what about the Civil War train full of ghosts still seen in Alabama, I think? Hey, I didn't hear about that one. That one would be pretty interesting. Let me Google that one and see if I can find anything about it. Alabama Civil War ghost train. Here we go. On a cool autumn night in October 1862, two trains disembarked into the darkness of the South Alabama night and headed toward a collision course with destiny. One southbound train, fully loaded with men and material, left Montgomery. Another similarly loaded train left Pollard, heading north sometime later. The trains carried no illumination and sped through the black night, accompanied by nothing more than a chug of the locomotive engine and the occasional scream of a lonesome train whistle. Somewhere between Greenville and Evergreen, the two trains collided in an explosion of metal boilers, men, and equipment. Among the twisted metal and the overturned locomotives and cars lay the contorted and bleeding bodies of dozens of soldiers as their screams of agony pierced the night air. Survivors of the accident who were unhurt made their way from the wreckage to local farms and homes seeking assistance. It's been said that the old Hawthorne house at Belleville soon became the destination for many of the wounded and dying men. James Richard Hawthorne constructed the house before the war. The Hawthorne family had relocated to Pineapple in 1854, and the Belleville house was later used as an aid station during the war to facilitate wounded troops to the Confederate hospital at Greenville. Doesn't mention anything about the ghost of it, but apparently there was a major train collision, killed quite a few people. They said the Hawthorne house is haunted, but it doesn't say anything about the railroad. I'm going to have to dig into that some more, but because I love history from that time in history anyway. World War II and the Civil War are two of my favorite subjects to read about. But the Pope Lick monster, the Pope Lick, they call him a goat man. Is reported to live beneath a railroad trestle bridge over Pope Lick Creek in Fisherville neighborhood of Louisville, Kentucky. Numerous urban legends exist about the creature's origins and methods it employs to claim its victims. According to some accounts, the creature uses either hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure trespassers out onto the trestle to meet their death before an oncoming train. Apparently, quite a few local teenagers have gone out onto that track and gotten stuck because trains were coming and they couldn't get off in time. Kind of like that scene in Stand By Me when the kids were caught on the train track. Other stories claim the monsters jumped down, or the Lost Boys. Other stories claim the monsters jumped down from the trestle to the roofs of passing cars beneath it. Yet other legends tell that it attacks its victim with a blood-stained axe, and the very sight of the creature is so unsettling that those who see it while walking across the high trestle are driven to leap off. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be something pretty freaking nasty to make me jump off a freaking bridge. I don't like heights to begin with. It might get me if it's got a rusty axe, but you're going to find me with my slide lock back and a pile of brass.
Yeah, KC Galloway said me and you keep going to these places, we might end up being missing 411. I said, well, they're going to find a pile of empty shell casings.
Yeah, there will be some clues. There'll be a trail of empty brass.
And it's like Dark was, he was kind of poking fun at us, but it was all in good fun. But
yeah.
It's not a death wish that we have. It's just,
definitely not.
It's just I don't have an off switch when it comes to stuff like that.
After years as a cop, things just don't scare you like they do most people.
No, I mean, you hear the term all the time, tombstone courage. It is what it is. I mean, how many times we said people that do the job that we do, we're not right in the head anyway. We're wired differently, and it's not. I mean, that's not a macho kick. That's not a.
Yeah.
It's just stuff just don't twist the same way up here that it does for most normal people. I don't look at something like that and go, "Oh God, I'll go. Ooh, I want to find out what that is."
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, my mother used to say when I was a kid that I would blunder in where angels feared to tread, and that's kind of been the hallmark of my life. I mean, I'd never wanted to be the second guy through the door, especially when we were stacking up, going looking for somebody. Like, hey, I want to take point.
Oh heck yeah! Let me be the rabbit. But yeah, my mom said when I was 1 or 2 years old, she said I was scared of everything, and then at like 3, it just went for like that I was scared of nothing. And she said that for the rest of my life, that's the way I've been. She's like, you got all your fear out between 1 and 2, and then hey Greg, what can I say?
Well, tends to run in the group. Me, you, Doc, and Steve. Although, if there's one of us that's got more sense than the others, it's probably Steve.
Yeah, Steve's got a little bit more sense than the other 3 of us.
Steve would be like, guys, this is probably a bad idea. And me and you and Doc are like, nah, it'll be fine.
Just get the med kits ready.
Yeah. Just be ready to patch us up when we come running back. Mike's right from Abnormal. He says, we're the type of people that just don't want to hear about it. We want to be part of it and understand it. Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to know. Ed Peak says, hi, everyone. Just stopping by before I have to return to work. Ed, thanks for popping in, man. Hope you have a safe night at work. Little Patty says, my mom always told me my curiosity was going to get me killed one day. I know the feeling. KC Calloway says, you're wired to run toward the screams, not away from them. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. That's like, when I first went to Seneca to be a detective, there's some dangerous places in Oconee County. And, I'm used to, or was used to, working by myself. So I had a follow-up on a case that I was working, and I went over there, signed out. 2 seconds after I signed out, my phone rings, and I look down. It's my best friend who got me the job there. And answer, I said, hello. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm on a follow-up over here. He goes, get your ass back in the car right now. I said, what? He said, I'm on my way. Get your ass back in the car. He said, we don't go to those places by ourselves. I'm like, Jason, I'm already here. I'm almost at the... He said, get your ass back in the car right now. I am on my way. And I'm like, what? He gets there and he's like, you don't go to this trailer park by yourself. I'm like, I'm already here. He's just like, look, I know you're an idiot. We do things different around here. He says, well, you'll get shot over here. I'm like, and I'll shoot back.
That's my philosophy. Eric Testerman says, people have always been saying for years that they hear a train coming down the old abandoned tracks around Ash Grove, and just off of US 36 highway in Buckland, Missouri, on the railroad bridge, a couple has been seen. I would have like to go out and check that out. I've been out to they call it Trash Grove, but Ash Grove quite a few times because it was kind of our little partner town out in Walnut. The towns are like 6 or 7 miles apart, and there was generally only one of us on duty in either town. So if they needed backup, we were the closest one, and if we needed backup, they were generally the closest one. So I knew a lot of the guys that worked over at Ash Grove. Actually, I knew all the guys that worked over in Ash Grove. Good dudes. But they got a little more craziness than we did because their town was a little bigger, and well, they had a lot of drugs out in Ash Grove. I don't know if that's the same way it is now, but they had a lot of crime out in Ash Grove that we didn't have in Walnut. Let me see. No, there's more of those. Hold on. Apparently, there was a ghost train from New York, and New England. They called it. It was called the White Train. It was March 16th, 1891, an opulent white train, a luxury passenger train of the New York and New England Railroad, pulled out of Summer Street Station in Boston for its first run, set to arrive in Grand Central Station in New York in 6 hours. The Boston Herald reported that people lined up the route through the city and suburbs and gazed with mingled curiosity and delight at the beautiful train. The train was pure Gilded Age splendor. Its parlor cars were fitted with velvet carpets, silk draperies, and white silk curtains. The chairs were upholstered in gold plush. Full-length glass mirrors were installed at the end of each car. Coaches were heated with steam piped directly from the locomotive, an improvement over the old fat-bellied stoves used only in ordinary coaches. Pinch gas lights brightly illuminated the coaches, replacing oil burning lights normally in use. Apparently, it had an extensive menu. But the like the richest of the rich rode this train, kind of like a land Titanic. The
Hmm.
white train's name was literal. All of the cars were painted white. On its first run, the crew, which included famous locomotive engineer Gene Potter, wore white coats and overalls, white caps, and white gloves. As time passed, when the white cars traveled through the countryside, particularly at dusk in the evening, observers came to refer to it as an eerie apparition. Thus, the white train was soon to be known as the ghost train. Uh, it was also considered one of the fastest trains at its time. Made the run in record time from from Boston to New York. Uh, when leaving from Boston, the train traveled 86 miles through central Massachusetts into Connecticut on a right of way owned by New York and New England Rail, with no stops until it arrived in Willimantic, where it changed engines. The train then went into Middleton and New Haven, completing its journey into Grand Central on the right of way owned by the railroad. Uh, Apparently, I guess it didn't have any crashes or anything, but people still report seeing this weird white train making that run. Apparently, there's a poem written about it. List, oh, list to the railroad bard, our new white train's the latest card. List to the poet's dulcet rhyme, the train is always on time. Spread the glad news wide and fast, the white train's come to town at last. Such beautiful cars have never been seen, outshining in splendor the sun's bright sheen. I guess even though nothing really bad happened on it, it is still seen to this day.
So my question is, are you Magellan or Columbus?
I don't know. I like to think of myself more as a Leif Erikson.
Well, Greg said we're like Magellan and Columbus of our day, so I just wondered which one you were.
How about Starsky and Hutch?
That'll work.
Do you want to be Hutch or Starsky?
Doc can be Huggy Bear.
Yeah, he's more of a teddy bear than a Huggy Bear. He's too small.
We're close, but he's not here to pick, so he gets to be Huggy Bear. But
we could be the Dukes. We could be the Dukes of Hazzard and see if he's got a pair of Daisy Dukes.
I'm Bo. I called it. Bo was always my favorite.
And Bo drove more.
That's true.
No, it's just more like Turner and Hooch. Thanks, Noah.
Bo drove more, but Luke got in less accidents, so that's probably about a good assumption of me being Bo and you being Luke.
Well, hopefully, anyway. Eric Chesterman says I was thinking more like the Hardy Boys. No,
Matt and Jeff are the ones in the books that hunted things. I'm just curious, because we're in that generation where it could be either one.
Or I remember reading these books as a kid. Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators. Those three kids that solve mysteries on their bikes. That's kind of us.
Thad's got a point too. Larry, Curly, and Moe.
Yeah.
We just know
that means Steve is Shimp.
Listen, Greg, I'm not the dog man eye candy. So you would have to be the one that wears the Daisy Dukes. Just saying, Greg. Just saying. You are the dog man eye candy.
Robbie and Daisy Dukes would look like a gorilla wearing spandex.
Not a pretty sight. And I ain't shaving my legs.
Roxanne Delgado says Cheech and Chong. Shaggy and Scooby
can't come in.
Shaggy and Scooby. I don't know. I don't know if I want to be Shaggy or Scooby.
No, they're scared of everything.
That's true, and always hungry. Well, that kind of fits too.
I can identify with that part of it,
especially if there's a good place to eat around. Andy and Barney. Well, which one of us only gets one bullet? Andy didn't even carry a gun.
Yeah, that don't really fit with us. Ponce and John.
DJ Hooker.
I don't really fancy myself as Romano, but
Well, it's better than Heather Locklear. You ain't got the legs for it.
No, I don't. Or the butt, or other things.
Too
And I
much of
meant
a
long
beard.
hair.
Too much of a beard.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Indubitably.
Only if I get to be Johnny or Robert Downey Jr.'s version of Sherlock Holmes.
You get to be Sherlock? I want to be Sherlock.
Okay, well,
You have to be Dr. Watson. I'm sorry.
I ain't smart enough to be Watson.
I ain't smart enough to be Sherlock.
True. I'm just saying. I'm not smart enough to be no doctor. That's Doc.
Yeah, Doc is Dr. Watson.
We already know who the three of us are. Dusty. What are their names? You know what I'm talking about. You already sent the meme.
The three amigos. God, what Ned Niederlander, Dusty Bottoms, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Ned,
Anybody
Dusty,
remember what the three? Ned Niederlander he's the short one, so that's
Martin
that's
Shorts.
Doc.
That's Doc. I guess I'm Steve
Dusty
Martin.
Bottoms, and who was the other one?
You're the tallest, so you get to be Chevy Chase's character, which is Dusty. So Steve Martin's character was.
Well, I'm gonna Google it. Lucky Day. Lucky Day, Ned Niederlander, and Dusty Bottoms. I can see that. Ugh. When you get the sombreros and those really weird outfits.
That means
you get the Five Horsemen.
That means you get to shoot the singing swordsman. I want to watch that movie again now.
Oh, I've got to watch that movie. I love that movie.
We got tequila. He's like beer.
No, it's not. Oh, sorry. I got my train of thought derailed there.
Yeah, we definitely went down a rabbit hole on that one.
Yep. Well, it kind of happens.
Thanks, Greg.
Well, Patty says Abbott and Costello.
You got to throw Doc in there, though. You gotta have
True.
the third.
Just heard somebody sound like they were rattling my door handle. Yeah, I need to watch that movie again.
Yeah.
I think I've kind of derailed myself to the point I've lost my train of thought completely. Thad Brown says, no, tequila is tons better than beer. I would agree to disagree with you, sir. I don't do tequila anymore. Tequila is no bueno for me.
I would rather drink Pabst Blue Ribbon than I had tequila. And that's bad because I hate PBR.
I don't know what it was back when I was young and drinking quite a bit. I have the occasional drink now, but when I was a young man, back before I met my wife, I was drinking quite a bit. And if I drank tequila that night, I always got in a fight. Don't know why, just happens. Tequila is one of those things that just makes me mouthy. And
well, I'm here to tell you, the old wives' tale, the old myth is, if you drink enough of something that it makes you sick, I mean really, really sick, that you can't drink it no more. That's what happened to me. Because I used to drink a lot of tequila. And I drank a lot one night. And I was sick a lot that night. And I can't even smell it anymore.
I did almost the exact same thing on cherry vodka when I was in the Army. Like vomiting, for hours, drunk, sick. For years, anything that smelled, even remotely smelled like cherry, I was like, no, thank you.
I would rather open up a mason jar of White Lightning and take a gulp of that than I had take a shot of tequila.
Coombs just texted me and said we would be the guys from Ghostbusters. I get to be Bill Murray. I don't know though. What's his name?
Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, Dan
I-
Aykroyd, pretty cool too. I like Dan
Yeah.
Aykroyd. Just completely drew a blank on his name.
You know they're making another continuation.
Is that one going to be mostly about the kids, or are they doing a whole
Yeah,
new
the
crew?
kids are actually, from what it looks like, the kids are actually moving to New York and taking over the business now. And Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and I think Ernie Hudson have signed back on again. That one was actually, I hated the remake. That was just stupid. But what really made that one is them CGI adding Ivan Reitman to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that made it, especially that one
Yeah, I
at
thought
the
that
end
was pretty cool.
when he came in and they were all four together right there at the end. Yes, Frozen Empire tunes. That's it.
Yeah, I saw the preview to it. It looked pretty good.
But what does Northwood say? Start drinking these days. Yeah, that takes me back to my Philistine days when I was a bouncer. Whew.
Did that for a while.
Yeah,
Toom says Afterlife was great. I'm gonna, there's some group of guys here that run the chapter of Ghostbusters of the Ozarks, and I'm going to see about getting those guys on the show because those guys they live and breathe Ghostbusters, and get them on to talk about the new movie and the most recent one. I think it'd be a hoot to get them on. So I need to reach out to Eddie and see about getting them on. I talked to him once at a convention. He said he'd love to do it. I just need to reach out and get it set up.
I would
I think it'd be a lot of fun. He's a
I
hoot.
would love that one because those are some of my favorite movies, minus that one in the middle.
Yeah, well, that one we don't talk about. So it
Nah.
was bad.
The
You know,
fun,
I wanted it to be good. I really did. And
Chris Hemsworth was the best part of that movie. He stole that movie the way but he could have done that part in just any other movie. It didn't have to be a Ghostbusters movie, but Chris Hemsworth was the best part of that movie.
well, Hemsworth is a pretty good actor,
Yeah.
unless Taika Waititi's directing. But that don't get me started.
Well, and Hemsworth done said that he's not going to
We'll
be
never
Thor
work with him.
anymore as long as if
He's in charge.
yeah.
Have you seen his Hemsworth's two movies, Extraction 1 and 2?
Yes.
Damn good movies. Oh, those are really good. Even Annette liked those, and she doesn't really like that kind of war movie action film.
That also 12 Strong that he did is a really good movie. You seen that one?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Very
that's
good
based
movie.
on a true story.
Yep. Hemsworth is he's just so believable in those because and they didn't release it till after Thor came out, but and I'm not usually reboots usually suck,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't by no stretch of the imagination like it as good as the original, obviously, but the remake of Red Dawn was not bad.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't the same, but it wasn't bad.
But that's the thing. They didn't make a shot-for-shot remake. They changed things. I mean, look what happened to Jed, Hemsworth's character. I mean, that didn't happen in the original.
No,
And
but the original, some of those are just iconic.
you can't beat Charlie Sheen and Patrick Swayze's performances in those movies. And that's the original was by far better. But I did not.
Still one of my all-time favorite movies.
Oh yeah, but I didn't hate the remake. I didn't hate it. It was because they changed just enough to make it its own movie.
Right.
They modernized it, but they modernized it the right way, not just to modernize it. And they left enough in it to make it nostalgic for those of us who were fans of the original, but they changed enough to make it its own thing to where it's its own movie. I mean, I like I said, Red Dawn original was the best and will always be the best, but that was not a bad remake.
I agree. I thought the remake was good. Um, Little Patty says Chris was great as George Kirk. Also, yeah, he did a good job of
Yeah.
that. Greg Ogles is now throwing in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
He's been a flesh wound. Me and Steve were doing that the other day. Always waiting on we're over at his apartment. We're always waiting on you to get done with your appointment. Something popped up and I on either TikTok or Instagram, I can't remember what. So I showed it to Steve, and me, him, and Noah started quoting Monty Python, the Holy Grail. We did that for like 15 minutes. I bite my thumb at you.
That movie's just classic. I love that movie. Eric Testerman sent me this. Says there's a stretch of the Union Pacific track that runs from Jeff City to Sedalia, Missouri. Has stories about ghost sightings and other events. Also, the Northern Missouri-Arkansas Railroad tracks just north of Branson near Reed Springs has a tunnel about stories that were men killed while building it. I guess they're when the railroad was going through, they were killed while building the tunnel. I've been down to Reed Springs about 1 billion times. Noah and I are still wanting to get back down to Joe Bald, and hopefully those tracks are still there. I haven't had a chance to get back down there yet because it's a week of Christmas and things are nuts. But knock on wood, I think pretty much all the Christmas shopping's done. We just got to get stocking stuff for the boys. I want to get back down to Joe Bald, and I think if we're going to go back down to Joe Bald, I'll run through Reed Springs and go look at that old bridge. I've driven through that tunnel about 1 million times. It used to be before they changed the highway. That was the route we took to Silver Dollar City. You drove down through Reed Springs and up the back way. But now that we live over on the east side of Springfield, we just take 65 because it's faster. But that old, I wrote about it in Lakeview, man. Right just past that tunnel, when you get to that tunnel and take a left at the stop sign, is that little dairy treat place where Clark stops at the beginning of Lakeview, man. That place is really there. They have fantastic hamburgers and their ice cream's pretty damn good.
But don't ask her to pour the cup of ice down your body armor.
Yeah, because she won't know what you're talking about. She won't get the joke.
I think we can do that, sir.
You've made that joke yourself, sweating your butt off in body armor. Can you just dump a cup of ice down my back, please?
More times than I care to admit, I've made that joke. And probably got about the same reaction that Clark got.
I think about every cop ever that's sweating their butt off in body armor has made that joke at one point or another. I know I have.
And how many times do you get the stupid, how do you move and all that?
Yeah.
Years of practice. That's the best I've got.
You don't have a choice. It's either move or die. Although I tell you, if we could come up with a way you could cool yourself underneath the body armor, we'd be millionaires in about an hour.
And it'd only take an hour because it'd take us that long to get everything out on social media where everybody could see it and start ordering it.
That's right. Every cop in America would want two. I don't know if it's going to inspire a ghost story, but the train at Silver Dollar City had a big wreck earlier this year. Nobody was killed. Nobody was even hurt, which is miraculous. But apparently they were going around a bend in the track, and the bolts holding the train car to the wheels came undone, and the whole car went poof, over on its side full of people.
That's aggravating.
Strangely enough, nobody was hurt. And Casey Calloway says, "Go away, or I shall taunt you a second time."
Go it, or I shall taunt you a second time.
We are French.
I don't know why he sounded a lot like Cartman in that I just did. But.
I was going to say that sounds more like South Park than Monty Python, but hey, we'll go.
Get away, I'll taunt you again.
You guys, I'm going home.
You will respect my authority, or I will taunt you again.
Northwood says, DA, what's worse, wearing body armor or being at Mop 4 in the heat? Dude, I'm going to have to go with Mop 4. I really am. Body armor is just on your chest, and yes, I've sweated my butt off out in the heat. But Mop 4, you're basically sealed in an oven. So yeah, Mop 4 sucks worse than body armor. But I've never been out directing traffic for 4 hours in Mop gear. But I have done it in body armor in full gear.
Well,
Um,
you know, I didn't have my body armor on, but we were outside what I say, for about 3 hours when I was down in Anniston, and
yeah, when you did the chemical training.
it was 90 plus. So yeah, I'm gonna say Mop 4s.
Yeah,
It's
because you're
worse.
sealed in.
Yeah, yeah.
It is not good.
And that wasn't even like high levels. That was just like the trash bag stuff. Basically, that was like being out there in a trash bag.
Tyvek suits. Mop
It's-
gear is like an inch thick, and it's
Oh, I
like,
know. Yeah, we put those
Oh,
on. We just didn't have them on at that particular juncture. I was telling Doc when I come back in that day when we was doing our scenarios, I'm sitting there talking to guy was in the class with me, and the nurse that was doing my vitals and stuff. He kept saying, "Sir, are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I go back talking. He goes, "Sir, are you sure you're all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." What? And I go back talking. He said, "No, sir, are you sure you're all right?" And I'm like, "Why do you keep asking me if I'm all right?" He's like, "Well, your blood pressure's a little bit elevated, and you're this and that." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm 20 years older than everybody else in this class, and I just spent 4 hours outside in a trash bag. What do you expect?" He said, "Don't feel nauseous or anything." I'm like, "No. Do I look like I'm?"
they were worried you had a heat injury.
Yeah. Hey, I'm this way
Motor
all the time.
Transport says I've dumped sweat out of my rubber boots in Mop 4. Yeah.
Oh, we put that first day we were out there, they had us put that gear in that bag, and we thought, oh, they're going to go clean it. No, we got that gear back 2 days later. Ugh. we were in there all getting dressed, and I looked at the guy beside me. I said, "This smells like a freaking middle school locker room after a football game." He goes, "Yeah, it does."
Greg says, why can't you run ice water in tubes under the armor like they do in spacesuits? Well, the problem is in space, you don't have to worry yourself about the weight. In duty gear, you're probably already carrying 40 pounds, and water weighs about 7.5 pounds a gallon. And to keep that water iced, you're going to need something to pump it and something to keep it refrigerated. So you're probably adding 15 to 20 pounds to your duty gear. So yeah, it would be feasible to do that, but the problem is weight. In a spacesuit, you don't have to worry about that, but on a duty belt, you dang sure do.
Plus, getting in and out of the car, you got to have something that's going to fit in the seat. You can sit comfortably for 12 hours.
Casey Calloway says my plate carrier always smelled like Bigfoot smell as described. My plate carrier stunk so bad. I would come home and flip it inside out over the back of my desk chair and spray it until it was dripping with Febreze.
I've got 1, 2, 3. I got 4 bottles of Febreze up on top of my gun or gun rack.
I think I owned stock in Febreze when I was wearing my body armor every day, as I would literally come home, flip it up and over, and spray the crap out of it and let it dry.
Don't have to do it quite as much during the wintertime.
This is true. But you know, it's always nice to have that extra carrier. That way you can take it apart and wash it once in a while. You didn't always have the time to wash it after every shift, especially if you're doing 12 hours and you've got to turn around and be right back on in the morning. So you didn't have time to strip it down and wash it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It don't. It gets sprayed, but it don't get washed until
Until a day off.
Until I have 2 days off, because I ain't taking that thing apart and putting it back together in between
I always tried to have an extra carrier. So if I worked more than 2 days in a row, I would strip it down, put it wipe down, take a disinfectant wipes and wipe the armor itself, put it in the new carrier, wash the other carrier, throw it in with my uniforms. But I remember that time I was talking about where I was out in the sun for 4 hours directing traffic. I threw that carrier away and bought another one. Like, nothing's going to help that short of a fire.
We don't have. Well, we got those big outer vests though. So those things are expensive. So you don't throw them away. You wash them
No,
and just hope that they
no.
or
Our
gain
department was just starting to issue those outer vests when I got hurt. So,
gain and Febreze.
oh yeah, I always kept a spare uniform in my locker, and there are times when we would get into something, and I would come home with a bag and just throw it away. Like, I'm not even going to try to save this one. Northwood says, I remember everyone tried to schedule their annual chem warfare training during the winters, so it wasn't so bad being in the gear. Exactly. Casey Calloway says, Robbie, I did all my basic training at Anniston, Alabama.
It's probably where the CDP is now.
Yeah.
That used to be a which one we say that was?
I can't remember.
Uh,
Fort Rucker?
no, I don't think it was Rucker.
Let me Google it.
McClellan. I think that's Fort McClellan. I think that was it. I think that's what the CDP is now.
Fort McClellan, Anniston, Alabama.
Yep, that's it. That's exactly where I was at, KC.
Yeah, and
Go back again in January.
Alabama and Georgia in the summertime ain't no joke. Oh my God, you could fry an egg on the asphalt.
That's the instructor said, well, y'all are lucky. And we're like, why? And they said, because y'all here on a cool week, it was 93 degrees just about every day. We're like, this is a cool week. He said, oh yeah, it was over 100 last week.
That'd be brutal.
But I'm sitting there thinking, at 93 and you're in this suit, is it really going to feel that much different if it's 100? You're still going to be cooking like an egg, like you said. I don't think it would feel much worse at 100 versus 93.
Here, speaking of trains, here's a train story for you, but it's not a ghost story. During the Korean War, a group of Seabees were embedded with the Marines, and they put ashore at Incheon to start an assault on North Korea. Well, they got orders to take out a train depot where there were a couple of trains being stored that were going to be used to move supplies back down to the front. So they sent the Seabees in to basically blow this up. So the Seabees get there and find out that this train depot is right next door to a brewery. So they proceeded to loot the brewery, load up both trains, and take off. And on their way back south, they found that one of the tracks had been sabotaged. So instead of abandoning the trains, they got out and fixed the train tracks and went on. They basically went in behind enemy lines, stole 2 train loads worth of beer, and took it back south. It's considered one of the most reckless and crazy missions of the war. But the freaking Navy Seabees, man, stole train loads of beer during the Korean War. And when they got it back, they're like, "How do we know it's safe?" The Seabees are like, "Because we've been drinking it the whole way." That is insane.
Didn't the SEALs take some CBs too originally?
Mm-hmm. The CBs are crazy, man.
Any wonder why? Any wonder why?
The CBs are crazy. I've got a buddy who's a CB, and yeah, I could totally see him doing that. He's as nuts as they come. Great dude. I worked with him at the sheriff's department. I'd kick a door with that guy any day of the week, but he ain't right sometimes. Eric Testament says, "Yep, never get between a Marine and his alcohol." Yeah, the CBs are, man, those guys are like in the military version of Bob the Builder, only they blow crap up too, so they're Bob the Unbuilder as well. Probably better at deconstruction than they are at construction. Big Vic says, look up the Fat Electrician. It was a Japanese train. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was a Korean train, but I'll look up the Fat Electrician. I love that guy. He's pretty funny, but I'm pretty sure that happened in Korea. I could be wrong, though. My LT's in the chat. He says, I know who you're talking about. You know exactly who I'm talking about. He is pretty nuts, but there's not many guys I'd rather kick a door with. Because there ain't an ounce of quit in that guy, not one bit. I'm going to get my LT on the show here soon. James Jenkins, who's in the chat right now. We're going to do a show on the bald knobbers probably right after Christmas. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy it because it's a local Ozark story, but it's also one of those historical stories and involves some very creepy stuff and even ghost stories. So it's kind of part of the Ozarks haunted history that I like profiling. So I'll be looking for that to come up soon. Thad Brown says, "Yeah, the fat electrician's hilarious." Exactly. Quack bang out. I love that guy.
I hate that didn't get to meet Lieutenant Jenkins when I was down there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it just scheduling didn't work out. But I will let him know in big advance when you're coming next time, and we'll take you out and show you the bald knobber graves out in the Mark Twain National Forest. That's a pretty area, but it is some rugged territory too.
I want to get out on the lake and go to Combs Ferry too.
I think I've got that locked in. I think I know somebody's going to be able to get us in there. So we need to get you down here. We want to do it before the ticks get bad. So we can get you down here, February or March sometime.
Yep.
Hey, maybe you could do it over spring break when school's out. You won't have to.
Yeah.
You won't have to miss any work.
Nope. I mean, I still have to take the time off because.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't miss the school.
Let me know. Let me know when spring break is for you, and maybe we can plan something. I would like to do at least 3 or 4 days, even if we gotta, find alternative lodging for you, so you don't have to stay at a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, because honestly, gas and the hotel are the biggest expenses.
White says, when we go in, DA, hey man, if you're still down, well, we're looking to try something around spring break. So Robbie's going to get with me when his spring break is in South Carolina, and I want to do the first redneck amphibious assault on Combs Ferry. Camo Dad says, my new place is near the Daniel Boone National Forest. That place is no joke either, from what I'm told. Dude, I hear some creepy stories coming out of the Daniel Boone. Miss Naoma says that's a hot spot now for Bigfoot sightings. And I'm getting a lot more stories out of the Mark Twain than I used to too. Yeah, we definitely need to get back out into the Mark Twain. So you get down here, we hit Combs Ferry, and then I'll get with Lieutenant Jenkins, and we'll grab the old bald knobber guys, and we'll go out there to the bald knobber graves. That section out past Chadwick, out past Chadwick, Missouri. That is some rugged terrain. You step off the beaten path out there, you get lost in the woods. That's the Mark Twain runs right through there. So that's someplace we got to hit too. I think you'd really enjoy it.
I definitely want to get back down there as quick as I can.
Wyatt says, sounds good, brother. I want to take you out to Cricket Creek Marina as well. Hell yeah. Let's dock and say I'm down like 4 flat tires. If you want to do that before, we'll do that anytime soon. Just, shoot me a message. You got me on Facebook, I believe. She'll shoot me a message and maybe we can get that done pretty soon. I will take certain bang sticks, and we will be in business. Remember where I told you when we were heading out to Joe Bald that there was that other campground? It was featured in Lakeview Man where Clark went, called Ants Creek.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Bigfoot sighting.
Where he found the floater?
Yep, there was a Bigfoot sighting at Ants Creek just the other day. guy that was down there fishing in that cove said just across the little it's kind of a cove in that area near Ants Creek. Just across the water from Ants Creek is a wood line, and it came down to the water line, saw him, and went right back into the trees. Said he saw it for about a minute and a half before it realized he was there. Said he was like mid cast, like it just froze. I don't blame him. He said I was just getting ready to cast. And he said I couldn't even go forward with the pole. He said I saw that thing walk out and just stopped and sat there staring at it until it realized I was there. Yeah, Roxanne, me too. Yeah, I definitely. There's a lot of places around here I need to get. And now that the weather has gotten cold enough to kill most of the bugs, I want to start getting out there. And now that my doctor has given me the thumbs up to be a little more active than I was, yeah, we're going to hit some of these places. Greg's heading out, dude. Thank you. Thanks for being here, man. Hope you get. Hey, and it's awesome to hear that you were up without the wheelchair. So, dude, keep getting better. Well, folks, you all ready for Christmas? I know we've pretty much done all our Christmas shopping here, but we still got to get some stocking stuffers and a few things like that. But we're finished up the last of it just a little bit ago. But really, I hate going to stores, especially this time of year. But oh my God, you can't park within a half mile of Walmart right now.
Oh.
Well, Roxanne, if you hear anything about it, let me know.
Yeah, I definitely want us to get on the planning because we got that other thing we talked about. And maybe I could see if that other one wanted to come on down. Johnny?
Mm-hmm. That would be freaking awesome. Hey, one of our members here at the DA Ex MachiNation, Chandler Hall, requested earlier that we all think of and pray for his father-in-law, or his father, Larry Hall. His father's in the hospital, and I guess he had to be resuscitated, and he's in intensive care. So, you guys remember to say a prayer for Larry Hall tonight.
And also still remember Penny Van. She's still going through that with her.
Absolutely.
With her ex-fiance that passed away.
Glad you remembered to say that, man. Definitely keep Penny in your prayers as well as
Greg.
Pat. Greg and Pat.
And Doc, because he's been having a rough time.
Doc's had a rough time of it here lately as well.
Get orders filled and people being sick and things going on with him. And DA with his stuff.
Well, I appreciate everybody's prayers, but we're getting there. It's 9:15, and I think we should probably mention our affiliates and start winding things. 9:45. I mean, we'll start winding things up. Before we do, I just want to let everybody know we're not going to have a show on Saturday. I've got family going to be in for the weekend for Christmas, and I'm going to spend as much time with them as I can.
See, you remembered without me telling you.
Yeah,
I'm proud of you.
Didn't have to. You didn't have to get prodded to remember this one. But we're going to have family in from out of town, and we want to spend as much time as we can with them. Tomorrow night we're going to go down to Shepherd of the Hills and look at all the Christmas lights in Branson. So that's going to be fun. But it's Friday evening. We're going to have folks coming in and again, want to spend as much time with them. That's what the holiday season's all about, folks, is being part, spending time with family and people that you care about. And I hope each and every one of you have an amazing week in Christmas with your families. shall we hear from the little pocket doc himself?
Let's hear from the little feller.
Alrighty, here we go.
Hey everybody, this is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And folks, if you go to Dark Angel Medical, don't forget to use discount code Cryptid25 for 25% off your order. I know Doc would greatly appreciate your orders. He's having some issues right now that I think the extra business would help. So if y'all were considering getting a med kit for somebody for Christmas, I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated. But don't forget to use in the notes, put Team Odin or codename Wild Hunt, and you can get a little Team Odin rocker on your kit. So head on over there, darkangelmedical.com, and use discount code Cryptid25. Robbie, you want to talk about Scallywag?
Sure. Let me finish answering the question. All right. Scallywag Tactical is another one of our affiliates, veteran-owned and operated company, and they make some of the best knives that I loved them before, but when I got my hands on this, I was just like, this was made for me.
Told you.
Oh, I believed you.
They're good, but there's just something about that gunner's mate.
I said this on the show the other night. I love my firearms, but if I could pick anything else, if I had okay, you can't have your guns. You already picked one weapon. I'd pick this, and obviously that's always only because I don't have an Ardennes in my hand. We'll get to that later, but I would pick this because there is just something about having this knife in your hand. Those of you out there who got them know what I'm talking about. I got big old paws, as you can see. So it's hard for me to find a knife that's comfortable and it fits good. And it's awesome. And that's the way all of Craig's knives are. Anything from that big gunner's mate to this just Jolly Roger. I mean, I've held that knife DA's got right there. They're all comfortable. They're well made. My Sunday go to meeting knife here. My pretty little copper thing. My sailor assisted folder. If you like knives, you'll find something on that website that you'll like. And
if you're a cook, their kitchen knives are excellent. Best kitchen knives I've ever owned.
And I know that he put a bunch of stuff on there for the blemish blades.
He just added a ton of blemish blades.
Get on the Scallywag, check out the blemish blade section. 9 times out of 10, it's just the box that's messed up. It's not the knife itself. We sat here looking one night. DA finally found one knife of his that had a little bitty,
just a nick.
Just a small nick.
Scratch in the finish.
And functional damage is what that's called, because it did not stop the knife from being a knife at all. And
no,
Craig's just the kind of guy, he's not going to sell that new, so he's going to take that and say, oh, that's not perfect, so we're going to discount that $100 or whatever, some outrageously astronomical number, because this is a $300, $299 normally,
something like that. Yeah,
and the ones that are on the blemished are like $85. So you do the math, because that math don't math, but he does it somehow.
This is the only one I've ever gotten that had something that I could actually find. And I don't even know if you can see it. See the little scratches up near the front of the blade? Right there.
Yep. Right. You got your finger right at it. That's the spindrift,
a couple
right?
Scratches in the finish. Yeah, it's the Steve Reichert spindrift.
Which,
that is literally it. There's no notching on the blade where the edge is bad. It's just the finish got scratched probably when they were grinding it. The
Yep.
finish got just a little scratched. And I've used this thing a ton, and I love the Tanto tip on this thing. And it is, I mean, even all the way out to the tip, this thing is just wicked sharp. And only thing I could ever find wrong with it was that little scratch on the blade. And hell, I think I've done worse to most of my other knives.
Yep. And like I said, if you like knives, you're not going to be able to go on that website and not find at least 4 or 5 knives that you're like, okay, I want that, I want that, I want that. And quick shipping. I ordered this on a Saturday night after the show, and what I say, DA, by Monday or Tuesday, I think I ordered both these at the same time, and I ordered them on Saturday night. And I want to say Monday they were in my mailbox. And one of the things I really love about it is you can use Venmo. You don't have to worry about. Yep, you can use Venmo, PayPal. You don't have to worry about going in and doing these third-party sites, which, I mean, I guess that kind of is a third-party site, but you've already got your information in there. If you do the online shopping, you probably already use Venmo or PayPal or any of that stuff anyway, so it's already there. You already know it's verified and protected. You just put your order in, and they take care of it, and you ain't got to worry about nothing. Comes right to your door. No fuss, no muss. And when you go to checkout, after you've gone to your blemish blade section and put your blades in there, and you think, okay, that's a pretty good discount. Use code DA Roberts 10 when you're checking out, and you're going to get an extra 10% off of the already discounted blemish blades that you've got in your cart. So then everybody in your Christmas gift list who loves knives is just going to really love you because you just got them some of the best knives you could buy. That's all I got to say about that.
Toombs says we got their. Toombs is in Australia, and they got their Jolly Rogers in 4 days.
So,
Roxanne says I ordered mine Friday, got it today.
Go ahead. I was going to say, you're not going to go wrong with these knives. I mean, I think the Orca was the first one I got, and I was like, man, this is a pretty good knife. And I used to carry my Kershaw was my on-duty knife. My Orca has now displaced 2 Kershaws, which are pretty high-dollar knives. I mean, you're gonna pay for a Kershaw, and their paperweight's over on my nightstand now. Well, one of them's in there that I keep one of them in there to laser to do the cutting that I need to do there. But my Orca is in my uniform. This is my shop knife. It goes out in the shop with me every day. This is DA likes to say is my Sunday go to meeting knife. When I want a fancy looking knife that looks pretty hanging out of my pocket, but it still go. This is the one that goes with me for that. So
didn't you say the gunner's mate is going to go on your vest?
Yep, this is going to go on my my plate carrier, and I'm going to take my well, actually, I think I'm probably going to leave my dew claw on there too. I'm probably just going to add this one. So I have my dew. I mean, because why take it off? I mean, that's
the perfect knife to have.
Yeah,
that's the perfect knife to have when you go out tracking. Because if you need to cut brush back, that knife will do it. If you need to, you're moving, stuff out of the way while you're looking at tracks, that's got a good weight in your hand. Or if, God forbid, you need to defend yourself or cut the head off a snake, that's the one to do it with.
Well, I think this one would definitely cut the head off a snake if I needed to.
Hell yeah, it will. Our other affiliate is Ken Brock over at brockblades.com. I ain't seen Ken around in a while. I don't know if he stopped watching this or if he's just been busy.
I think he's got a lot of stuff going on for Christmas, so he's probably just been busy. Because this is a big time for him.
Ken Brock is a retired law enforcement officer, career cop, first responder. He's an awesome guy. He makes all his knives by hand in the shop behind his house. Whereas Scallywag blades are all outstanding, high quality blades. They are mass produced. They're made to order. They're no two of them or any two put side by side are identical. That is not the case with Ken's blades. Ken's blades are all handmade, custom blade design, custom custom handles. It's all done by hand. And if you know anybody, this holiday season or coming up for a birthday or anniversary that spends a lot of time outdoors, hunting, fishing, first responders, veterans, anybody that enjoys a good knife, Ken's blades are top notch, and they're not just made to look pretty. You can rest assured those are high quality knives and meant to be used. That one I just showed and Robbie showed are called the Skane Do. I'm still waiting to get my Ardennes like Will Gray Eagle carried in my Afghanistan story. But they're just outstanding blades, and Ken does a hell of a job on these things. They're beautiful. They're works of art, but because he puts so much detail into them, and you will not be sorry to have a homemade blade. It's something to be cherished for a long time. So go to brockblades.com, check out everything they have currently available. Also, you can do custom orders, but either way, whether it's custom order or purchasing something directly off the website, use discount code cryptid10. You'll get 10% off your order, and let them know you heard about it from here on the show. Ken's an awesome dude, and we love supporting our first responders and veteran-owned businesses. Oh, and we're since we're getting toward the end of the show, something I want to mention, and I know we kind of always wrap up the show with this. Northwood says depends on how big the snake is. I would put that thing up against a green anaconda. I mean, that is one seriously heavy knife. Mike Don Vito does one of the videos on the Scallywag YouTube channel where they hung up an entire pig, and he used the gunner's mate to slash it and cut through ribs all the way down to down to backbone. So yeah, I'd put that knife up against just about anything you want to put it up against. But what I wanted to mention, we always do here was we're winding up the show is the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide. Justin says, who makes the Gladius? The tactical Gladius, you can find that on traditionalarcherybows.com. They're a sword maker and bow maker here in Springfield. You just go to traditionalarcherybows.com and check them out. Or you can just put in tactical Gladius, and it'll probably in your search engine, it'll probably take you to them. But the company's actually called Scorpion Knives. And that's what I used in the Ragnarok books. I still want to get one of those. I don't have one, but I do want to get one. But what I was saying about the 22 a day foundations, we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that's 22 too many. If you go to Officer Down Memorial page or ODMP.com, you'll see the number of officers we lose in the line of duty. And then the ODMP even mentions when we lose an officer to suicide. And the numbers are staggering. We're losing way too many of our first responders and our veterans to that. And it's horrible. I hate to think of any family getting a folded flag, but losing it to that is even somehow worse. It's something that is very near and dear to my heart. We need to get that number down to zero, folks. Especially now at the holidays, a lot of people really have trouble struggling here at the holidays. Reach out to your first responder and veteran friends. Let them know you're thinking about them. Invite them out for a beer. Ask them how they're doing. Bug the shit out of them. Tell them, hey, I was thinking about you. Let them know you're thinking about them, especially if you've got any inkling that they might be struggling, because the holidays is a bad time of year for a lot of folks.
Even if they don't remember having the conversation with you.
Yeah, like the other night when I called Robbie to check on him and he was sound asleep.
And we had how long of a conversation?
We talked for about 10 minutes. And Robbie didn't even remember it the next day. But still, check on him. Check on you people. Let them know you're thinking about them, especially with the holiday here. Because the voice on the other end of the phone line or that text message or even showing up at somebody's house with a 6-pack of beer saying, hey, let's watch an old stupid TV show together. That might be the thing that keeps somebody off that edge. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. I mean, sometimes it's just going to happen. And to me, that's all the more tragic. But for those we can reach, let's reach them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know they're important to you and that they've got somebody that does care about them. We've got folks right here in the chat tonight that, folks, if you don't have anybody else to reach out to one of us. We're more than happy to listen. Because when we may put the fun in dysfunctional, but we're a family here at DA Ex Machina, and we want to keep each and every one of you. You guys are family, and we hope that you guys have the best possible holiday season, and know that there are folks who do care, and that you are worth it. You are worth saving. I don't care what you've seen. I don't care what you've done. There are people that care about you and always will. Even if you don't feel like you're worthy of that, you are. So if you're struggling with it, if you're having a hard time right now, let those people in. Let the people that reach out to you, the people that are there for you, let them in. Let them know you're hurting. Let them know that you want to talk, or you just need to be with them. Don't be afraid. I know it was a big thing for me to swallow my pride to see a therapist, but I did it. And you get those guys that are the guys that are on the sharp end of the stick, the first responders and veterans and actually active duty. You feel like you can't talk to anybody, or it's a weakness. If you do, it's not. Talk to somebody, even if it's just somebody that's going to share a beer with you. Talk to somebody, because we don't want to lose you. So, in conclusion, check out the Valhalla Project, because that charity goes like way more than any other charity. It actually goes to help veterans. They buy dogs for people that need therapy dogs or need service dogs. They help put up memorials for veterans, the people that don't have tombstones. They give plaques to families of the fallen. It's just a fantastic organization, and they do way more than just about anybody else to help veterans, because most of these big organizations, pennies on the dollar, actually get to veterans, and it's the other way around with the Valhalla Project. Like 95% of what they take in goes right back to veterans. And remember, this holiday season, you are not alone. There are those of us out here who do care. I hope each and every one of you have the best of holidays. Remember, it's what it's about is spending time with the ones you care about, and you don't have to be alone. So hopefully you guys will have the greatest of holiday seasons, and we will see you guys next Wednesday night. Like I said, we won't be doing a show on Saturday because I've got family in town, and I want to spend as much time with my oldest son as I can. So hopefully we'll see you guys in a week. And again, I hope you guys have the greatest of holidays. And I'm going to close out the show with a toast. It's something we've been doing here lately. And the show, the toast I use is from the song "The Parting Glass." It's an old Irish song. They generally play it at the closing time at the pub, and it's about lifting a glass. But when you really read the lyrics, it's about raising that glass for those who aren't there to raise the glass with you anymore. So I would ask each and every one of you guys to, whether it's water, Kool-Aid, root beer, whatever you're drinking tonight, raise your glass to those that we've lost along the way, and those that we care about that are still with us. To all the first responders that are going to be working, first responders and soldiers who are going to be away from home and working these holidays, so we can be safe. And it's a debt we owe to these men and women that we'll never ever be able to fully repay. So we'll lift our glasses to everybody, and we'll say a silent prayer for each and every one that we know out there that needs it. And thank you guys for your prayers and your support and your friendship, because it means the world to us. So here we go. I'll end it with the toast. The toast says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DA Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.